Welcome, everyone, to the Leadership Academy project series. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Monica Dreyer Rossi, and I am the program manager for the American Indian and Alaska Native Leadership Academy. Today, we are hosting the 8th session of the Leadership Academy project series. Next slide, please. The American Indian and Alaska Native Leadership Academy is a one-year program for behavioral health professionals working in Native communities. It is a mentor-mentee program focusing on peer connections, networking, and development of leadership skills. Each mentee works on their own community-based initiative during their time in the Leadership Academy. During this series, the mentees from the Leadership Academy 3 are presenting their work to you. Common for the presentations are that they focus on different aspects of indigenous communities' well-being. Next slide, please. Here's an overview of the sessions hosted so far in the Leadership Academy project series. And today, Chenoa Crowshoe-Patterson will present on Creating a Space for Healing, the Native American Counseling and Healing Collective. If you are interested in listening to previous sessions, you can find them on our YouTube channel, and we will also share the links in the chat today. Next slide. This session is presented to you by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Prevention Technology Transfer Center and the Addiction Technology Transfer Center located at the University of Iowa College of Public Health. And we are a part of a national network of technology transfer centers. Next slide, please. This program is funded by SAMHSA, but the content and opinions expressed today do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of our funder. Next slide. I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping items before we start. Please take a moment to give us feedback on the event at the end of the presentation today. We will share a link in to the evaluation in the chat towards the end of the session. Also, if you would like to receive a certificate of participation, be on the outlook for a follow-up email. You will find instructions about how to get your certificate, and it will also be a recording and a PowerPoint of the presentation in the follow-up email. I want to thank Sarah Adams, our graduate student, who is working together with us on this and other projects in the Native Center for Behavioral Health. And also thank you to our director, Dr. Anna-Helene Skimstad. Next slide, please. This is our center's land acknowledgement. It has been authored by Keely Driscoll, Ella Driscoll, and Sean A. Bear. I'll give you a couple of moments to read through the land acknowledgement. Thank you for taking the time to read the land acknowledgement. And with that, I want to welcome our presenter, Chenoa Crowshoe-Patterson. Chenoa is an enrolled member of Piikani Nation on both her mother's and father's side. She received her Master's of Social Work focused on trauma from the University of Denver. Welcome, Chenoa. We're very glad to have you here to share your project with us.
Thank you, Monica. Uki ni Danaku Chenoa Crowshoe-Patterson, Nimno Do Piikani Nation. So I'm from the Blackfeet tribe of both North and South tribes of the Blackfeet where the border the border now crosses. My father is from the South Piikani tribe, and my mother is from the North Piikani tribe. And they met somewhere in the middle. I I'm currently working as a Native American Counseling and Healing Collective behavioral health therapist. And I just want to thank everyone for joining me today. We can go to the next slide. Before I get started, I just wanted to offer a little a prayer for everyone that's here today. And so I'll start by saying, I'm calling upon Creator to join us today and to offer all of us that are here the ability to take in something new, to learn something new from each other today that we might be able to share within our families, within our the folks that we work with, and that we'll be able to also, I imagine that most of us are here because we are also healers. And so thinking about how we can help heal others and each other. All right. Next slide, please. So I will start off by saying that our particular leadership project group, our cohort, started back in 2019, which is kind of funny, but it lasted a long duration of time because of the nature of COVID. So we started gathering around August of 2018. I got to meet my mentor, Angie Wilson. She was actually from the Pitt River tribe, which is close to the Karu tribe. And so there was something like very unique and special about that because she brought with her some knowledge about the Karuk tribe, which is part of my dad's tribe. So he was part Karuk and part Blackfeet. And so with that, he brought a little bit of, or she brought a little bit of like home and it felt very welcoming. So she helped me kind of understand what I'd like to be doing with my leadership academy project. And we started off by thinking about how we could connect youth and elders together. And so at the time we were kind of talking about doing some podcasts or having our elders talk to youth kind of on an interview process where we were recording it and being able to share some of these stories with the community and with the youth. And so that was when I was working at a center, kind of like an Indian healthcare center. What happened with that project, it kind of fizzled out because there just wasn't any funding to support it. I think the elders wanted to do it, but it was also trying to bring in elders into a center without having any transportation. So the transportation had become an issue. And then trying to get youth there during like their time after school where they were available, and then having the elders there, it just wasn't working. So during the same time that all of this was happening, there was some kind of workplace trauma that was going on within the organization that I was working at. And I started looking for new jobs. So I eventually moved over to Jeffco Indian Education and started working with our youth there, but I was able to continue my project within the Leadership Academy. And so Angie helped me come up with a new project idea, which was really just opening a therapy groups practice. And so in March of 2020, me and 3 other women from that organization that we were currently at, moved over and opened up this group practice called the Native American Counseling and Healing Collective. And so I'm going to pause there because this is March of 2020, and we'll go to the next slide. So what is the Native American Counseling and Healing Collective? And then I think you could hit it again and all the. So it's a group of 4 Native therapists. So we had 1 Blackfeet and then 4 Navajo women who had met at the prior agency and wanted to create a safe and friendly and private space for folks to come in and do therapy. I think if you know of like small towns or even big Native communities, you'll know that it's really hard for Native folks to go and seek therapy because they're concerned about their privacy and confidentiality. And the place that we had been at prior, that we were all doing therapy at, that organization was a bit challenging because you could see people coming in and out of the building, and it didn't feel very private for folks that were coming in for therapy. So when we decided to open up this Native American Counseling and Healing Collective, we really wanted the ability for folks to come in and feel like they had confidential conversations and that other community members weren't seeing them come in. And our mission was to support the healing and perseverance of Native American community in a caring, confidential, and safe environment using culturally responsive practices. I'm going to pause there and just see if there's any questions. And I'll look at the chat here too. Okay. All right. Okay. Next slide. When this group of Native women, so me and the 3 other Native therapists got together thinking about this, we didn't realize that COVID would be happening. So we actually launched our first day of this practice opening on March 1st of 2020. And obviously, we all know that on March 12th, most of the organizations, most businesses had to shut down due to COVID. And so we had a bit of a slow start in our practice. So for the 4 of us, we decided that we would have to stay at our current jobs and not necessarily go full-time into our practice. So all 4 of us stayed. We're doing therapy with 1 to 2 clients, as we were trying to transition and opening our doors, but we had to keep our full-time jobs. I think at that time I was working at Jeffco Indian Education, and the other 3 were doing therapy at different agencies that were non-Native. All right. The next slide, please. During the time of COVID, it allowed us to kind of like stop and kind of pause and make sure that we were doing things correctly for our therapy practice. One of them was really going out and asking our Native community members what they needed out of therapy practice, what they would like to see. And a lot of our elders were able to provide some feedback. A lot of them wanted like some group sessions. Some folks really were requesting that we make sure that we have medicine of all types, because the Denver area has such a wide variety of different tribes. We really needed to make sure that we had different medicines, healing medicines from all of those different from different like areas of the land. So, for our tribe, we use a lot of sweetgrass, but for other tribes, there might be sage or pine or cedar. So really making sure that we had the right medicines, and that those medicines were coming from the right people, that an elder, someone was bringing them in, and that we weren't buying them from a store. A few other things that we really wanted to reflect on is who is going to be doing working with youth and who is going to be working with elders, making sure that we had someone come in and bless our office. And so those are just a few things that we kind of were able to, because of COVID, we were able to put a pause on things and really reflect on like doing it in the right way, as opposed to quickly trying to open doors. So it gave us a little bit of time to really reflect on things. Next slide, please. During that long pause, I think the Academy, we met actually right before, I think we met in February of 2020 in Albuquerque area. And it was such a wonderful time because we were all able, we didn't know COVID was happening, but we were sharing our presentations. We got to share them with some community elders from that area to really have their input and see if, if there's things that we could have done differently. So I think during that time, I just remember hearing from elders and other mentors, not just my own mentor, Angie, but other mentors, that they really liked the idea of really creating this safe space for folks to come in and seek behavioral health and wellness. And they gave me some really great ideas about just making sure I was launching it correctly and doing it with the intention that it was meant for, and not doing it out of trying to create money or be swift about it. Like they really wanted me to take it slow. But so we did. In March of 2020, we paid for our office. So we paid for our office that we never used. In all reality, for another 6 months, I think. We launched a website. We purchased G Suite because it's a confidential and HIPAA compliant email space. We all received our LLCs to open up a business. In fall of 2020, I was able to take a client, and that client came with me from my old business where I had been doing therapy at. And so that was, it was nice. We met outside. We did not use the office at all. And the beginning of 2021, one of the 4 therapists that started with us originally had to leave due to some personal matters. This was during a time of COVID, so she really needed to put her family as a priority. Towards the end of 2021, we switched office spaces to save money. We also wanted to move that office space in a place where it's more central to the Native community. It was only maybe a mile away from the Denver Indian Center. So it worked really well. And so we did start seeing clients during that time with the protocols of COVID. At the end of 2022, just last year, we had one of our 3 therapists leave. She just could not bring in the clients, and she wasn't feeling she had the right skills to work with Native community. She may return. And then at the beginning of 2023, we were just down to the 2 therapists. So it was me and Sherry. And unfortunately, Sherry also had to leave due to she had another baby, and she just needed just some more time with her family. So at I guess 2 months ago, I was kind of panicking because it was just me, and how could I call this a collective if there's only one person? So in the last few months, I've been out searching for other therapists in the Denver community that were Native, that were willing to join me on this in this journey. Next slide. Oh, I don't know what slide this is. This might be new. I'm not sure. We might have to skip this slide. Some of these slides are from probably my prior presentation, I'm guessing. So, a couple of things that before I get into the nowness of the collective, is the few things that we learned from COVID and during this time is really just knowing that COVID did affect a lot of folks. And so I really wanted to figure out a way to be able to talk to our community members about COVID and the impacts of COVID. And I needed to figure out a way to try to encourage other Native therapists to join me on this journey. So one of those things that I started looking for was grants. I was able to find a small mini grant to support COVID circles, because I know that remember how I mentioned transportation was an issue for our community. So I wanted to really figure out a way to invest some funding or find some funding that would help support community members in attending. And so part of that was looking at funding to find transportation. The other thing is finding funding that would support food. I know a lot of our community members like to come together around food, and food is often the central piece to like many of our gatherings. And so I was able to find this COVID relief grant, and was given a small sum that will help support food. It'll help support gas cards for elders to come. And it'll also pay for our therapists to be able to provide talking circles to the community at no cost to community members. So that was one of the big things that I needed to receive. And because of that, I'm able to now, I was able to take this funding and actually go to a couple elder circles that have in the community with other Native organizations and ask them if they had an interest in joining together in circle and talking about the impacts of COVID. I see that there's a question. Okay. So we have a question that says, do you provide services only in person or virtually as well? So Amanda, we do virtually and in person. The virtual piece has been helpful for some of our individual sessions. I don't know if I could do a group session I haven't tried it virtually, but I think that could be something that could work, I think if done properly. So yeah, we do both virtually and in person. Is there any other questions? Okay. So with the COVID circles of healing that I had mentioned, we were able to get 12 elders signed up for our pilot program. And we will be starting that in 2 weeks. And so I'll be able to connect and really hear from elders in those circles, how COVID has impacted maybe their jobs, their community, their sense of community, if it's impacted their housing. And then hopefully during this time, we'll be able to use storytelling as a form of transformation for this group of elders in these circles. And my hope is that these circles of healing for COVID will reach out to other groups and we'll be able to even like maybe connect with some of our youth, because I do think COVID has impacted youth in the way it's caused some stress and anxiety around returning to school classrooms. Are there any other questions? Right. Okay. Next slide, please. Oh yeah. these slides kind of got out of order. Let me see. So with our Native American Counseling and Healing Collective, originally we had the 4 women. Now we have 2. We still have our affordable space. We have our licenses. The other Native woman that I am working with now, she is from the Apache tribe. So we have a little bit of I guess we have a little bit of room for like growth. We would love to see other Native therapists in the area join us. We have the website already set up, so when we had any new person that comes on, we can just pull up their information and put their bio into the website. Our group practice isn't something that is necessarily where we have employees. It's just she has her own LLC. I have my own LLC, but all the information is shared on that same website. So when people Google search Native American therapists, both these names pop up, and they're able to reach out to either therapists or reach out to our website specifically through the link in the website to be able to connect to a therapist. We offer sliding fee scales, and we do that because we do have some folks seeking therapy that do not have insurance and just need a sliding fee scale based on their gross income. We offer $45 to $80 sessions. And any other questions on this part? Okay, next slide. One of the things that I mentioned before is that we do try to bring in medicine. So we try to use our traditional medicines during session. I've already asked the organization that our office is in that if we can burn those things in our office, and they're completely fine with that. So that was thankfully we're connected to a business inside a business that allows that understands that our culture and our medicines are sacred and they're important to use in our practice. I mentioned storytelling and how storytelling is really, it's really just narrative therapy. And so for folks that are using using narrative therapy as a part of their practice, I think it allows the individual to be able to narrate the story and share the information as needed, but only share what they want to share with the therapist. And it also allows them to have some position of power in that storytelling. And so I think narrative therapy really is the most culturally considerate type of practice or type of form of therapy. Other things I use are motivational interviewing. We talk about emotions, so understanding and processing emotions. Next slide. So coming back to the relaunch of our Native American Counseling and Healing Collective, I'm going to share like a little bit of the reason why why we were returning to relaunching this collective. Because we lost the 3 other therapists, I had to figure out a way to really just relaunch or close, right? And I wasn't sure if I wanted to close the collective because I'm still wanting to provide therapy, and there's a sense of there's a sense of security to do that with others, like-minded folk. And so in April of this year, I was really kind of like figuring out, like, do I stay with my current job working at Jeffco Indian Education, or do I kind of follow this passion and think about how I could like relaunch the Native American Counseling and Healing Collective and continue to do therapy. And so it was also the same time that my dad had been in the hospital. And at that time, he was really kind of encouraging me. He ended up getting COVID recently and did pass. And it's interesting because I think had I not had these conversations with my dad, and I think if my dad was still in the hospital, I don't know if I would have done this like relaunch. I think I would have felt more secure staying where I was at my job. As he was like going through these things in the hospital. But I am so grateful for the opportunity to have the conversation with my dad to really relaunch and relaunch the counseling collective, and also just kind of follow my passion. And so one of the crazy things that I always wondered is like, I hadn't like dealt with, I hadn't like really worked with folks with grief, but because I went through my own grief, I was able to, I felt like I was very, I don't know, very aware of like what grief was at that time because of my dad passing. And I think it gave me the opportunity to really think about how I can use what I've learned in my own grief with others. And so that's when the COVID Circles of Healing that's when this grant idea kind of came about. And because we were grant funded, I was able to start launching these COVID Circles of Healing. And I think it was really just a moment of understanding like my passion, but also being okay with like letting go of where I was at with Jeffco Indian Education. Yeah. So that's where, we're maybe next slide. So when I was able to relaunch the Native American Counseling and Healing Collective, obviously got my passion back in me, found a grant, thought about how we would relaunch this collective as more of like who can come in. So we're still seeking other folks in the Colorado area to join us in this collective. And that's where we're at today. Next slide. I'll pause here to see if there's any questions.
While we're waiting, I just want to say to the group that I did post a link to previous recordings of from this series if you are interested in watching them on YouTube.
And I apologize because I'm a little distracted. I heard some, I thought I was here by myself, but I hear some people are coming in the door. And so I kind of felt a little distracted partway through that conversation.
That's okay. The pleasures of working from home, right?
Yes. Thank you for understanding. All right. Well, if there's no questions, I'll just go on about opening a private practice portion. And this is really where I think my passion, it is so much fun to open your own business, and it's so much fun to like kind of launch a brand. I think it was probably my most favorite thing was just really like figuring out what our website was going to look like, what our colors were going to be. So anyway, so one of the first things you want to do as you're opening a practice is you want to become licensed with the state. So getting your LCSW for social workers or your counseling license. The second thing you want to do is make sure that you have a business license with the state. So you would just look up your, like if you go to the DORA website, you should be able to find how to do that. It should be able to send you to links in order to do that. You'll want to get your national provider identification number, especially if you're planning on taking insurances. So one of the big things that that I wanted to do was take Medicaid. And I know a lot of people will say that's really hard, but it actually only took a few months to get licensed as to take Medicaid and Medicare. But because most of the folks that we work with, like our Native community members, they're the ones that are usually on Medicaid. And so I think just depending on the group of people you want to work with, you'll want to consider what type of insurances you'll be taking. You want to create a business name. I had a supervisor, and she used her name, and so I thought it would just be easier to use my name. In reflection, I wondered if I could have made it a little more fun, but my LLC name is just Chenoa Crowshoe-Patterson LLC. You'll want to decide if you're opening an LLC or an S corporation. This would depend on how much money you plan on bringing in. It would also depend on how much money you think you'll be paying for taxes. And so my suggestion would just be Google searching LLC and Google searching the S Corp, and kind of doing your own research on it to see which is best for you and your practice. You'll want to get insurance for your business and your license. I currently use a company called American Insurance, and they provide insurance both for my LLC and my license. So you'll want to make sure that it's 300 to 100,000, 300/100,000, because this is where if something comes up, such as somebody makes a claim against you, you'll want to make sure that you have enough funding that supports any legal fees. And so they always recommend the 300-/100. The next thing you'll want to be doing is looking for an office space. Like I had mentioned before, we found an office space that was pretty centrally located within Denver. It's easily accessible by bus, by public transportation. It's not far from the Denver Indian Center, and it's pretty central to other Native organizations within Denver. It's easy to find, and it also feels like it's a safe and confidential space. And so just some key things to think about. You also want to make sure that it's wheelchair accessible if you have clients that are in wheelchairs, and that it's the sounding, so if you're talking in a room, you want to make sure that the sound, that people can't hear you speaking in that room. It's also nice just to have one of those little they're kind of like sound noise makers that you put outside your door so that people can't hear. It's a little muffled. We launched a website. We used Squarespace because it's easy to design. They provide you links on how to create different buttons. If you wanted to use a button to for people that had inquiries, you can add in a Google Sheet or a Google Form doc into that website. It's to me, it seemed really easy to use this Squarespace. You'll want to figure out which program you want to use for your note taking, to make sure it's HIPAA compliant as well and it's secure. I use a format called Simple Practice. It's easy to take notes, to write a SOAP note. You can also file your claims directly from that website. So all my claims for Medicaid go directly to the Medicaid site just by using that Simple Practice launch site, and then I get paid within a week. And then the email site that we use is G Suite. It is HIPAA compliant. You have to kind of go through the G Suite to sign this form that states that it's HIPAA compliant, but it is. There's also Hushmail. And then you'll want to register your practice with a CAC ProView. So making sure that your NPI number and everything and your CAC is updated, and then you'll want to update that every 90 days, and they will remind you if you forget. I'll pause there to see if there's any questions.